Welcome back to Ryan Dunstan Podcast, Words from a Humble King. I have here with me, per usual, special guest, Mr. Antonio Tone Mosby. We did an Elevate Connect networking experience together, and we met, and I got a chance to kind of do the financial piece, but. Man, in the building, we had all kinds of actors, comedians. We had some agents, some directors in here. We had some writers, and Mr. Antonio Tone Mosby was one of the guys I connected with, and he was gracious enough to come on the show. So I appreciate you coming in and joining me.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So listen, I mean, I've always wondered, and I'm pretty sure everybody else too, right? How do you stumble on something like this? I mean, this is not something you just wake up in the morning and say, I'm about to just throw myself in front of millions.
Yeah, it's wild to think, because that's exactly what it is. I never fathomed doing comedy. I never fathomed acting or directing. Entertainment was never a dream. It just so happened that I dove into spoken word based off of depression. So I wrote poems, and then I said, let me get on stage. Because for me, stage fright and public speaking was not in the cards early on.
Yeah.
Not even writing, honestly. But so I gave it a try. I'm like, all right, that's cool. But I was like, I'm good. Then I ended up getting dared by a coworker of mine. Like, man, you too funny. You always making fun of people. You sound like them. You can imitate people. You can do this. Just go on stage one time. Right. You're wasting your talent. So I'm really a guy that listens. I'm not someone that takes someone's words lightly. So I pay attention to conversation. Like, man, you tell me this a couple times. Let me see what I got. You said I'm funny. Let me see if the world thinks I'm funny.
Yeah.
So I got on stage again. Lights bright. I'm nervous as I don't know what.
I can imagine, man.
But I heard a laugh that wasn't from family, that wasn't from people I knew. And I'm like, man, I can make people laugh. And it felt therapeutic. And it was like that moment resonated with me so much that it was a natural high. It was the ability to, like, I don't need to drink to feel this way. I don't need to smoke to feel this way. I don't need to do anything to feel enlightened and uplift, because I can bring joy to someone else even if I'm not happy. So that opportunity was so amazing that I didn't stop. I did it again and I did it again. And I ended up forming my own comedy team, my own business team, No Chill, TNC Entertainment. And I just started doing shows where we went to Ohio and Virginia and Pennsylvania, and we did stuff here in Maryland, in different cities. I worked in, like, down in DC, in the DC area a lot over the course of these 9 years. And even when I took the break because of life and how life was happening, I felt incomplete when I wasn't doing it. I didn't feel myself. So just getting back to it, I met a good brother, he goes by Hollywood Tim Megison, and that's how I got into the world of acting. So everything, it was one of those.
Tim was here.
Right? Yeah, Tim was here.
I met Tim.
That's me and him. We met almost on your how type of thing. Where Method Man had weed and Red Man had the blunt, and they had the. Well, you got this, I got this. We come together.
Right.
So we met where I had the show and he needed a mic, but the show wasn't a good show. Like, I didn't have any, and there was no guests. It was nobody. It was empty. I just chose a bad night. So I said, hey man, come back. This isn't normal. He came back. He ended up selling tickets. I was like, hey, I seen you sold tickets, bro. Here, take a couple $, just because that's how I like to do business with people. Like, if you work for, like, you brought these people. I didn't bring them.
Yeah.
Why would I take money? You helped me make this. So I like to break bread. And then we just formed a great relationship there. And he invited me to an acting class. And that's how I got to see that world. Because again, a lot for me, I didn't research this. I didn't look into it. I fell into it. And I was blessed because of the network that I started to build. So even falling to doing that and doing an acting class led me to a stage play where I met a lot of dope people, which led me to being on film, where I met, the acting class from also my main. So I met him, and by meeting him, I had an idea for a sketch comedy. He was like, dog, let's go, let's do it. So we did the sketch comedy, and I met my guy Naeem Freeman at Iron Crown, and I was like an extra on his movie. And that was 3 or 4 years ago for Dad Gang that's been doing numbers and it's up on TV and stuff. And I was just an extra, like the creepy guy that's messing with somebody on the couch. You know what I mean? But fast forward years later, I'm directing and producing and releasing my own movies out of that same production company. So I tell people that work is how you look at it, because this isn't work for me. This is passion and love, and purpose. I embrace it. This is my purpose. So the opportunities that came to me, I never took them lightly. I didn't just brush them off. I had nothing but I was gratified and I was grateful to be an extra on this project. I was grateful. I was like, oh, you need some help? I'm cleaning up. Like I was just an extra, but everybody leaving, I'm gonna help clean up and pack up. Like you trying to get the stuff to your van, dog? I got you. Let's get the stuff out there. Because you provided me an opportunity. So I want to look out for you the best way I can.
You know what, man? You said something, because, this is actually how my podcast got started. I was journaling, and because I was going through a depression as well. And I didn't have an outlet, right? And I was in this weird stage in my life where I was kind of losing old friends, and I was in the middle, so I couldn't go back to where I came from, and I wasn't quite where I was going to be. So I didn't quite have the relationships to lean on. So I ended up, turning to the camera and letting it all out one day. And I remember that was over Instagram live, and that kind of morphed into me having conversations with a bunch of other different people. And but in the journaling, man, I was kind of finding myself, like you said, you stumble, you fell into it. I kind of did too, because I didn't know I had this talent either. I didn't know I could write. I didn't know I could explore thoughts the way that I do, and I didn't know that I could, speak and articulate the way that I can. And when you're coming from where you come from, it's you feel it's weird, because you're different. You got something. You don't quite know what it is, and you haven't discovered it yet. But you just look around and you're like, I know I'm not supposed to be here, right? So I don't care what else it is, and I said all that to say, I could start to get into this world and experience the failures or the zero likes or views, right? Because like you said, it wasn't about performance, it was about purpose. And I could fail at it, and I could be wrong and not be good at it, because I was working on it, but it was working on me. So I'm interested, because you've mentioned that portion of it when you first got started with speaking word. How much has this kind of blossomed you into what I can clearly, you mentioned to me earlier that you were an introvert. And by the way, most introverts are funny, man. You guys are some of the most sarcastic individuals I've ever met in my life. Right?
I told somebody, like, I'm a petty sniper. Right. Like, I'll be in the back, like, do your shirt, right? What is your shirt for? You want to be, what are you doing?
Right. So to be a comic makes sense. But how much has this thing kind of worked on you and blossomed you and fueled you into the person you are now discovering you are?
The crazy thing is, you said something that resonated with me. Is like, these things has changed my life in a sense, because coming from, like you said, coming from where I came from, I always felt like I had nothing but ambition. I knew when I wasn't meant to be poor. I wasn't meant to be just like not having a house. Like, I knew these things. Like, my grandmother told me, because I have a horrible memory of my childhood for whatever reason it is, that I said to her when I was 8 years old, I just want to be stable. And that in itself never stopped. So I move a certain way because of that, because I want to be stable. So now doing these things, I still have that part of me, but doing like stand-up comedy allowed me, even though I'm an extrovert, like an introvert, I have extrovert activities. Like, I have to network to help build my brand. Like, my social battery might run low. Like, I might be at an event, you're like, where you go at? I might just disappear. But it helped me step out of my box and become more comfortable, because Prime example, I remember this, Miss Sparrow. Like, if you see this, this is your fault. You were my ninth grade teacher. And I remember I wrote a paper, and I was poor, so it wasn't no typing back then. I couldn't type it. I had to handwrite this paper for a book that I had to read to start at Poly. So I was at Poly. We had to read these dumb books. It was of Mice and Men. I remember, Larry, I know I read this book.
I remember Mice and Men.
So I had to write a report on this book. And she lost my report. And she told me I didn't write it. Now, I'm not rewriting this whole thing because I hand wrote this. I don't have a computer. There's no floppy disk for me at this time. But and then I ended up failing English. I had to go to summer school. So in my mind, I'm like, dog, I suck at this. So I never, now I wrote a movie. I went from, you're telling me I'm not good and I'm not good enough, to I wrote a movie.
Yeah.
I write poetry. I couldn't understand any of those things in high school.
Yeah.
So just even allowing myself to feel something that, and I speak on that a lot as Black men, especially in my age range, like a little old, like us, and we're older, that we were taught to keep our emotions in check. Like, we can't be emotional. They say these, you soft, you this, you that, you a punk, you a chump. There's old school words there. Like, you would say all those things to us. So you can only have one emotion, that was anger. Right. You couldn't be sad. You couldn't cry. You couldn't be too happy because you being boastful. Like, you couldn't be braggadocious. No, you gotta be humble. Right. And you gotta be angry. Like, so when I started to write my emotions out and go through everything, because I didn't, again, like you said, I didn't know who to talk to. So at my point in life, at that particular area, I didn't have, I lost connect with my friends because of the situation I was going through with my older kid's mother at the time. So I lost a lot of connection with a lot of people. And then recently I went through another state because I still haven't properly healed. Right. I was healing, but I wasn't healed. I wasn't in a great state. I was just also finding my purpose. So when you find your purpose, like we was talking about off camera, you get resistance to see how bad do you really want this. Yep. And I ended up writing a movie through my depression. I ended up going through one of the worst times of my life to create one of the best times of my life. And I realized how important that is for my life, that without the art, I might not be here today. Right. The arts, for me, saved my life from depression in my 20s to depression in my 30s. With all of those things led me to the art and kept me in the art. Yeah. And it provided so much for me, for my family, for my lifestyle, for my understanding. So I'm more grateful for the opportunity to do this than I am to just do it.
Yeah, you said a lot. And, there's so many layers to what you just said too, because, it's one thing. What was that song, man? Music Soul Child. I say this all the time. That song by Music Soul Child. I was taught the true definition of a man was to never cry. Yeah, got to provide. I'm thinking to myself, you talking? That boy spitting. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that is exactly it. We were taught how to be rocks, but no one ever came to tell us that our greatest expression would come through art expressions.
Say that one more time for me. I don't know if the listeners heard this, because I heard it, but it was a bar.
Yeah, man. We can't find who we're going to be if we don't express ourselves, because it's who we are. And our expression allows release. And if we're going to find release, if we're going to have a release, now we're freeing up much more of a capacity to understand. And in that, you start to understand you a little bit better. And I know that, I've been through a few different rounds with depression, and, my family, but it's hereditary in my family, and anxiety, those sorts of things, those things run deep. Given everything my family has gone through, I'm from East Baltimore. Okay. And family, but it's Baltimore, right? and family came from South Carolina. The way we came, though, was all backwards and screwed up, and it caused some traumatic experiences for the children at that time, which produced, future kids, which turned out to be my mother and my father, and it's I have to deal with those things that I didn't give to me.
Yep.
But how do you deal with something you deny?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? I couldn't do this the way Music Soul Child was trying to. Well, he was trying to correct it, but you can't do that. Taught how to be a rock.
Yep.
You can't get from underneath those things if you don't express yourself. And I think that teaching us how to only be one way was, that was an agenda, if you ask me. But that's a longer conversation. My question though, navigating that and learning how difficult it is when everything in depression is great, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's everything is dim, dark, and miserable. So navigating yourself through that can be difficult, and your steps can feel heavy, while you also feel like the world is just kind of against everything that is you at that time. How did you I know you wrote your way through it, but when did you finally find out, like, oh, this is how I get through it, as opposed to you just kind of deciding, I'm gonna just write and see if it works?
To be honest, I didn't know that that's what I was doing until I finished. But one of the good things that I did have, because like in this later portion of my life, I found good counsel. So like again, a good friend of mine, Naeem Freeman, who I spoke of earlier, very close. So the whole time I was writing this project, I'm calling him up like, dog, just what I got. But I'm writing this as a relief, not understanding that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So us having these conversations about what I'm going through and how this is happening, and I'm writing, it helped a lot. I also found a therapist. So like it was a lot of things that happened at one time. And like you said, I didn't find out till this time last. Like I had anxiety, and I had this like being depressed. Like all these are things I didn't really know I was dealing with until it was in my face, and then I spoke about it. And like having someone that's not a yes man that's going to tell you like, dog, you messing up, or this ain't right, or hey, I see what you're doing, but this is how you can be better, was an extreme help, and it pushed me so far. And the other thing that happened is, like you said, we were taught to be stones, but I realized I had to be water instead of a stone. Because the water can go through the stone. It can go around it. It can chip away at the stone. Water can do whatever it has to do. It can flow and get to all the creases. And that's what I had to learn in my life, that I was because I needed stability and I needed all these things, that when things start to crumble around me, it reverted me back to a childhood. And once I understood that only thing I can control is me and how I move and how I feel, and I'm in charge of my happiness, it was so different. And it was that moment that those things clicked. Like, all right, well, when you feel a certain way, write it.
Yeah, man. You said something there, because you're right. You can't express if you're not flowing. And just like water, and still water is infection. That's where infection breeds. I agree with you there. So talk to me about this then. All right, now I've had that breakthrough. And my discovery in it, the very first time I journaled, man, I actually followed the guidance behind Dr. Darius Daniel. Shout out to him. To ask 4 questions in the morning. One was, what are you angry at? Right? Let's acknowledge the manhood. What are you sad about? Because that is how we express our anger. What are you anxious about? Fear, right? And then, what are you grateful for? And in those 4 questions, in that order too, because you have to end it where you have to end it in order to be able to end it on a good note. But you have to start it with the worst of the worst, but with the authenticity of who you are and what you have been taught to be, to be, as you work your way out of that, right? It's like accepting the you are now. But the very first time I did it, I knew it was something I was supposed to be doing, because, man, when I read what I was angry at, when I got a chance to read something apart from me, see, I used to feel like I was angry. Like, I'm just angry. I said, well, I am. And it's because of what you did, I'm mad. It's not necessary. This is the way it works. This is an equation, right? And if you don't do it, I don't get mad, right? And I'm just, and to me, I couldn't necessarily detach anger from me. But when I read it, right? And then when I read the sequence to it, which was the sad, I'm looking at how it was the first time I said to myself, I'm fucked up. It's like, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, fuck me, man. I have some work to do, man. Yeah. This is crazy. And you're right. I had to go to therapy. I had to get in there. I've been in therapy about 3.5 years now.
Congrats, man.
And thank you. But therapy for my family was a hell no. It was crazy, right? Yeah, nobody playing in my head, and I'm like, what? So I couldn't even talk to nobody about that route. Mm-hmm. But once I had the breakthrough, once things started flowing. Initially, it was heavy. It was weak because all I did, it felt like for a while there, I'm like, yo, once you get really connected, and I swear, nobody on this thing better not laugh here, all right? Live with me for some real life, okay? Relate with me. But when I first got reattached to my feelings, I felt like all I did was cry over every damn thing. I felt like it was tears coming left and right for no reason at all. I'm watching movies, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at the news, wondering how they go. It was a lot, bro. You know, it was a lot. You know, coming from a child and then crying 20 years, and then all of a sudden I'm a flood of emotion. What's going on? That took some time for me to get adjusted to. And as I had begun to manage those things, I had begun to realize, man, I don't quite know who I am yet. Mm-hmm. But I know damn well I ain't got to be who I used to be. Talk to me about that, because that was freedom to me, King.
Right. Listen, everything you said is a fact. When you said, where did these tears come from? Like I said, just because I'm still getting through my breakthrough. So it's like, I told somebody this recently. I said, man, I be crying sometimes. I think it's my old tears that's just finally coming out, because I don't even know where they come from. It's like, what is this? This looks like old tears that just resurface, like, surprise.
Yeah.
So, but I understood exactly where you come from with that. And like you said, this breakthrough is so infectious, because I even spoke to my wife. Like, the things you used to be mad at me about, you got to make a choice, because I'm not that man. I forgive me.
Do you?
You have to. And you don't have to. Yeah. But you have to understand that I do. So I'm not going to move the same way that you are. This elephant is no longer mine. I'm done with him. So, and I said this, like I told my kids, like, hey, I apologize, because the man I used to be isn't the man I am. So when I speak to my teenagers and they get to see me with their youngest sister who's 6, you see me as a father to a 6-year-old. And when you was that 6-year-old, I wasn't the same type of father.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same type of lifestyle. I apologize for that, but I can't change it. I did the best I could at the time I could.
With the hands I've been dealt.
With the things I knew.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I had, father doing the drugs he was doing, mother doing what she was doing. Right. I'm out here paying rent at 16. We still getting put out. So it's like, I'm 20 years old. By 23, I got my 3 daughters.
Yeah.
By myself, trying to do hair and do the crazy thing, I just had this conversation with my 14-year-old yesterday in the car. I said, when you get to 20, 21, 22, 23, you're going to look back and say, dang, my dad had me at this age. And my sisters.
It's hard.
And he had to do this?
Yeah.
And you'll realize, and you'll come to me. You're going to come to me. Mm-hmm. When you really sit back and realize what I was doing and how I was still here. Like, I'm not like these other quote unquote deadbeats or the people that just disappeared. Nope. I was in your life every day. I was doing your hair. I was sending you to school. I was packing lunches. I was cooking dinner.
Yep.
Like, I was a single mom as a dad.
Right.
So, and you'll realize these things. But like you said, now I get to this point in my life and I'm just, again, grateful that I can look back and say, dog, you actually made it.
Yeah.
You made it out of situations that was meant to break you.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, like we discussed, we knew we were meant for more. And a good friend of mine asked me, do you have any regrets? And I told him no. Because yes, I could have made choices different, but my life would be different.
Yep.
If I'd have moved, if I'd have stayed in college during those times, I wouldn't be here doing this, because I'd have ended up going into a career, landing these jobs, and I wouldn't have met the people that told me, dog, go try this.
Yep.
So you wouldn't be able to ask me this question because you met me in this field.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't have a regret for something, because everything shaped and molded me. I get on stage and talk about my pain. I talk about the things I've been through in a funny way, but I talk about being broke. I got a joke about combo soap.
Would they say laugh to keep from crying?
So it's like, I found a way to just use my pain as a resource instead of as a detriment.
Yes! Listen to me, man. Young fellas, if you're looking at this one, you have to understand. And you mentioned something too, some things that were meant to break us. And that is true, right? And that's often what we get. We get two truths, and we get a chance to focus on one of them, right? And the one we focus on is the one that grows, the one that we give life to. And if we focus on something that was supposed to break us, it will snap us in half. But if we focus on that it was supposed to make us, grow us, develop us, get us to think about it differently, get us to manage it differently, get us to handle it differently than the folks before us that always handled it, those things become for you as opposed to you. And if you can compartmentalize those two, separate them, understand them too, and then choose the most healthy one to focus on, you'll see your life start to go in that trajectory. But that's not always easy to do in the moments. And I've had some pitfalls, man. I've had some moments I went back. I have some moments where I know there's individuals that's gonna look at me and say, I don't believe you. I don't believe who you are. And you're right. And you have to be willing to say, I understand why you don't, bro. Like, I get it. I was with you when I was doing what I was doing. I was there.
I see me.
I get it. I understand how it's hard to believe. There's an exception that comes along with that. But then there's also in a weird way, it kind of prepared me for rejection for when I would grow into where I am, right? I'm like, because now it's so much more easy for me to say, oh, you ain't on my vibe? All right, cool. All right, bet. I mean, you're just not for me. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It don't mean that, you're not going to be a great person. And it don't mean it's going to stop my wave. It just simply means that we were not meant to be at this point in time. And that's all right. I also wanted to note the change that you had, that the people around you had to acknowledge, because once you become different, they have to respond to a different person, no matter what. If I no longer come to you and yell, and you're expecting that, and I never yell, then you have to now respond to my calm, and there's nothing you can do about it. And those changes are organic for a relationship standpoint. It was a breath of fresh air when they actually started to believe that change, though, because it took my kids. I had to, my oldest, especially, I had to, we were healing on him, man, but we bled on him first. We bled on him first, and he negative things were transferred to him that shouldn't have never been transferred to him, which is the reason why I give him a little bit more grace than I do my others. But I will say that I understand that transition in your life, because it's a humbling thing to know what you've done to a person. And it wasn't your fault. I did it. I didn't know what I was doing, though. And I didn't mean to do it. And that realization helps you understand life a little better. It helps you understand exchanges a little better, because when I look back on that and how bad I was affected from culture, man, I'm gonna tell you, I'm the person. We got to do cold calls every now and then, right, for business, and there's times where you get hung up on, right? It's like it's the times where they like, what? Click, right? No explanation or nothing. But it's like I'm meeting that with compassion now. It's like I'm meeting people that I experience that are angry with compassion and understanding. And at one point, I could see a guy saying that that's soft.
Yeah.
But now it's like, no, it's maneuvering, it's understanding, but then it's also progression, because you have to deal with difficult people. And in your business, I know for a fact, you can see Cat Williams just let a whole bunch of a whole bunch of stuff air out. And then you got all of the BS going on with Diddy in the entertainment industry. There's a lot over there where if you don't have your set of circumstances prepare you for what you're getting ready to roll into, man, you could easily be swallowed up. Speak to that a little bit, man. Some of them pitfalls in your industry.
So for me, one of the things, because even like when you said about journaling, but what I do just start of my day, like prime example today, this is my routine that I just started implementing on myself. It's I wake up, I pray. Like today I prayed for, hey, I'm going to have a good day on purpose. Prepare me for that. Help me accomplish that. Then I read and I apply what I'm reading, regardless what it is. So I've been reading the marketing book and a self-branding book. I'm now reading The Alchemist. So like I'll read and I'll find whatever it is and I'll apply that. Then I work out. Then I prep my tea and I prepare myself for the rest of my day with getting kids to school, going to work, all those good things. So becoming someone to understand who you are is so valuable in this industry, because what happens is, if he did it, he didn't do it, I don't know. But you are who you are, and if you have more money and you never healed, you're just a monster with cash. And it makes your access and your ability to do things easier, because you didn't have power before and you was already trash. So now if you got money and you got power and you never healed yourself,
you're an accelerated version of that.
You just exactly.
Right.
So for me, I just try to stay with people like you spoke on that are on my same path. We're on a similar journey. And if I notice that you're moving different and we have a conversation and you still move different, that's fine. We're not for each other.
Right.
Because what I will not allow is for my path to be disrupted.
Yeah, work too hard, man.
So I'm so, again, grateful for what I'm doing. Is I can't take these opportunities lightly. So I won't waste mine on anyone else. Not my family, not people that I love. If you're not for me, and this is with all respect, I can't be for you, because I have to stay on my path. I feel this is my purpose. And as men, once we learn what our purpose is, we have to do this. And our women are going to give us resistance. That's that feminine energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes as men, we don't understand the energies, the masculine and feminine energy. So understand who you are. Like, you might be a man that has feminine energy. It doesn't make you anything other, but you might be a man that's leaning more towards feminine energy. But if you're a man that has more of a masculine energy, you have to understand that your woman is going to test your masculine energy, which means, and within that energy is your purpose.
Yeah. Yep. So, and are you masculine enough to submit?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of dudes don't know that, right? Because, listen, me and my wife, man, we've been together for 20 years.
Well, congrats on that, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. We've learned quite a few things in that time frame. And one of the most manly things I can do is allow her to be great in her area of greatness. Don't compete with it. Don't try to fight with it. Don't try to control it, right? And a lot of times, a lot of people, it's hard to allow.
Yeah.
It's hard to allow anything. It's hard to let go of the control. But if you can learn the art of allowing the person in front of you to be themselves, to be great, man, I'm going to tell you, they can come add to your life in a way you've never seen before. And it's crazy you brought that up, right? Because we deal with that in our culture. For some reason, a lot of men start sneezing when I say the word submission.
They don't understand.
They don't understand it. And you also, but I'm gonna tell you, you can't get names like Harvey Weinstein and all that kind of stuff if you don't have pride, if there's not ego involved.
Yeah. Oh, that's a story I could talk about.
It's a lot of that in your business, right? Mm-hmm. So you would just think taking an L or letting a woman tell you don't get a part, or whatever the case may be, or having to work with another great person or another great woman, right? You can't come to the table with that ideology. That can't be how you bulls are gonna hit. Yeah. I mean, that's how that works, right? And can you be who you need to be in the moment? Can you become the chameleon to be able to coexist in the room, right, with other great minds? But how speak to that for a second, because I know that the ego in your business has to run amok, right?
Hey, so this is wild. So even when we speak of like ego, just for me personally, so we talked about like the writing, and we go back and looking. So like you said, like you went back and looked at some of the stuff you wrote when you was journaling. Mm-hmm. I wrote a piece and I found it. Like I wrote this piece 10 years ago or so, because I said during this time in my 20s, going through depression. So I write, and it was me like questioning, who am I? Where am I? Like, what am I doing? I don't understand me, because I was just so lost. And then I wrote a piece at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that was killing my former self. So like I used to go by a persona by Dat Boy Truck. Like that was my stage name, because I had to create a persona, because one, I'm an introvert. So this person can be the flair, the flamboyant, the extra, because that wasn't me naturally. So I had to kill my ego to be me. So like last year, I ended up having this like crazy panic attack. And for me, I feel like that was my ego dying, so I can be a better me. So it's like the release of that person was gone. That former self, that feeling like I had to control all these things. I had to be the man. I had to be this. Like, you just got to be Tone.
Yeah.
And
funny story. I worked under a different manager a long time ago. I was working at DTLR. He was a manager of mine, and he had an anxiety attack, and I had a few of them, but it took me a while to know that they were anxiety attacks. And I had to have a doctor tell me they were, as a matter of fact, because I just thought, I'm like, nah, like something's wrong. Find it now. So, long story short, he had an anxiety attack, and he was at work. And he had to go in the back, and he's sitting there, he's sweating and all that. I'm like, you have an anxiety attack? He looked up at me with the sweat in his eyes. He said, if I could get my hand around you, I would choke the hell out of you right now. I am not panicking. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm saying to myself, as manly as you want to be, you can't get up. You can't choke me. You are panicking right now, and it's for reasons you don't understand. Yep. We can talk about it at a later date. But the thing was, I had to watch his manhood, not necessarily manhood, because you become a man in that. But I had to watch, like you said, him shed. Yeah, he had to shed that toxic masculinity, and I watched it, and I knew what it felt like. So I could only chuckle. I know you're going through something, but I know you're gonna come out of it. But I also know, we're gonna have a good one on the ball on this one, man, because you sure don't believe that that's happening to you. And it's crazy. Most men don't. Yeah. You know what I mean? How have you handled some of the failure in your business? And that's a real big one, because you fail in front of people.
Yeah, I bombed on stage.
Yeah. Talk to me about that experience.
I don't treat any failure as failure.
Okay.
I looked at me bombing on stage back then, before, like with the ego, it was like, I failed, I messed up. But removing the ego, I understood that it's a lesson. So if I applied what I learned from it, how did I fail?
Yeah.
Because now, if I used this joke, but I didn't bring a certain tone to the set, if I didn't use a certain pitch in my voice, I didn't move a certain way, I didn't add a certain word, I didn't take something away from it, then I know that, all right, the crowd didn't react to this, but let me try this one. Because in comedy, it's subjective. So I had to learn how to, one, understand my audience, understand the people, and understand how to play off of the psyche. So it's gonna be times that things won't make sense to someone. That I might get in a crowd of people I have no idea what that psyche is in an overall crowd. And it might just be blank. It's not a failure. It's just a misunderstanding at this moment that I have to grow from. So as long as I grow, I didn't fail. Now, if I just sit back and just let it be, that's a failure.
Yeah.
So I don't look at anything that's unsuccessful at the moment as failure. I look at everything that's unsuccessful as learning.
And that's a golden perception there. Like, we talk a lot about this on the podcast. How you see it helps you hold it. And you clearly have a good perception of it that allows you to hold those moments so much more easier. You know, it's navigating those emotions that become the most difficult. But when you can perceive it to be a something, then that means, like we just talked about, it becomes for you, not to you. So, okay. Introvert, destroying, that's a process. Destroying a version of ego to become something else, to allow yourself to become that and not put gates on yourself saying that, you know, this is not it and this is a lie, mine and myself, blah, 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 right? Getting in your own way. It doesn't seem like you had that, or have you?
I definitely had it up until the point that I had to understand that there was strength in my vulnerability.
So talk to me.
So
talk to me. Yeah.
I used to had to feel like I can't tell nobody I'm struggling. I can't allow nobody to know that I'm hurt or I'm not in the right position. Which closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
The squeaky wheel is the one to get the oil. Like, so the moment I realized that my vulnerability and that I can articulate this in a proper manner without just waiting to a point that now I'm so upset that a conversation we could have had 5 days ago, if I'd have just spoke on the actual issue, that now you did something so minute that now I blow up and you like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, because I didn't speak when I was supposed to. I didn't have a conversation with you. So I'm so big on being not like just an open book. Like, I don't speak to everyone about things, but being more vulnerable so that these things are allowing myself to be more open to the people. So again, you can't get closed fists gets nothing.
Yeah, man.
Pride. I gotta open that hand and understand, like, hey, I can work out. Even us having a conversation, like you said, hey, do this. If I'd have just said, man, whatever, I ain't doing, like, nah. You know what? I'm gonna have a conversation. Let me hit my man up. I would love to be on, like, because even this is a dope experience. We're having a great conversation, and these are things that I feel like years ago I would have held myself back because I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
I wouldn't allow myself to go through. If someone said, I had people say, "Oh no, email me," and I email them, they don't respond. All right, that's what it is. And I even still have those moments because it's still certain parts of my mentality that I'm still working through.
Right.
But because now I'm vulnerable, I hit my homegirl up like, T, dog, look, this was happening. She's like, boy, if you know what you got to do. So, like, again, having good counsel so I can be vulnerable to say I'm messing up right now, but I can have someone put me back in place to remind me, like, dog, this is your path.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between me now and me then.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why Will Smith is slapping somebody on top in his 60s. Like, that's not healed. That ain't healed at all. So no, we cycle up, right? We heal with every cycle we get to, because every level we get to has different pressures to resurface different portions of issues in your heart, and you got to deal with them when you meet them. But being able to deal with them, how to perceive them. That's a golden perception when they come, because you'll be able to handle the moment so much more differently. You have, we've healed. We're healing, right? We started this thing. We've been in it for about 9 years. We had such a rocky start, but we also learned that our past was our becoming. That was the things that made us, kind of forged us into this thing. And some of the most darkest moments ended up being some of the most breakthrough moments for you. And now you are where you are, right? We just had a conversation about some initial investments to make, right? How to really position your money to work for you. And those are out in front conversations to have, right?
Yes.
And that's actually a great place to be. It means you're heading in the right direction. You said you were writing now for other people. You're writing scripts and all of that now. And tell me, where you find yourself now, what sorts of pressures do you experience as a black man starting to, because to be out in front ain't easy, right? When you're at the top or you're out in front or you trailblazing, you got to cut down the bushes. You're getting slapped with all the sticker bushes and all of the poison ivy. Like, you're the one going through it.
Yeah.
So as you embark on that journey now, what's some things you're starting to realize about not just the pressures you're beginning to experience, but then some additional learning processes that you're in?
I was made for it. That's one of the biggest things. And it goes back to, like I said, the regrets. My life positioned me to handle this so much easier. I'm like, how can I be upset? Like, I own 2 houses. Like, I was growing up, I didn't know where I was going to sleep at times. Yeah. I'm sleeping on the couch at my grandmother's house, and it's not even it's the love seat. Like, dog, I'm 6 foot.
Right.
Like, that's not comfortable. Got an uncle on the other couch. He's snoring. Like, I'm homeless at times. Like, so if I can make it through that, I can easily work my ass off to be great. And that's what I learned is like, dog, you got it. You've been molded, you've been broken, you've been built to do this so that you don't have to make it to the mountaintop. I'm always happy to see people I love get somewhere.
Yeah.
So if I'm just knocking down a few trees, I'm great. I'm the person that was happy playing a team sport. I play defensive end. Again, I'm 6 foot. I play defensive end. That wasn't the glamorous area. No one was like, oh, I want to be a DN.
Yeah. I
did it because I knew this was a part of the game you needed someone there. Basketball. I didn't have to be the point guard. I didn't need to be the person with no, you need me to go get some rebounds, do the dirty work, be Dennis Rodman style.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. So that's my mentality is however I can position myself so the people around me can get on the shoulder and go up. If you for me, then you go and say, dog, thank you. And you might help me back up. If not, that's fine too, because I'm proud of you.
So what I hear you saying is humility is satisfaction enough.
Yeah. And I tell people it's a big difference between being humble and having humility.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not a humble person in this game because I feel, and we can look the word up, the word humble has, in my opinion, a very derogatory meaning.
Okay.
But even just think about the saying, you need to humble yourself to come to me. Bro, I don't like me finishing a movie and they say, are you bragging? No, I finished this movie. I wrote it, I produced it, I directed it. I'm not bragging. I'm speaking of fact. I'm not being this braggadocious guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking on something I accomplished, and I'm proud of me because of the journey I accomplished.
Mm-hmm. But
you have to be humble so people can look, so they can swallow what you're doing. No, in business, you gotta be here. You gotta be an alpha. You gotta be aggressive. Because people will diminish all your accomplishments and act like what you did meant nothing. If you don't speak highly of yourself, if you don't invest in yourself, you don't brag about you, how can you expect someone else to?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do it in a way of disrespect. I'm not going to come up to somebody and like, man, I got this. Nah, that's being cocky and conceited and ignorant. I'm not that. I'm confident in my abilities and what I accomplished. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm not bragging. I'm not being disrespectful, but I'm also not going to be humble. And I'm very big on that. But I will have humility. I am very big on my people winning. I will cheer my people on. I will share, support. I would be there. I would clap. I would laugh. I would cry. Whatever I need to do for my people, I would do. But I will not humble myself to make someone feel better.
I think, nor should you. I don't believe you should. But I do believe that culture has a definition of humble. And then there's a true definition of humble. Because I agree with you. There's a difference between knowing who you are and what you've done, as opposed to having to fit in someone else's box. I think those are two totally different things. I would tell you, I can't relate to you if you're not humble, right? So I do believe you act with humility, and I believe you take on that posture as well. And I do believe that you don't necessarily succumb to the word humble, but you embrace it.
Yes.
And so what ends up happening there, I can feel you, I can understand you, and I can hear you, and you're not unreachable when you embrace the humility as opposed to be succumb to it. And I also believe that you exuberate it too when you want folks around you to win, you want to pour back into, and that's admirable, man, because you're right, culture has developed their own definitions with a lot of things. One of them, which is, I will argue my sons down to the wire. You cannot call me dumb. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I'm nobody's dummy. As nobody gonna call me dummy. I just worked way too hard to get to where I am for somebody to label me that, right? And no matter what you want to say culture says about the word now, you still can't call me dumb. So I get it. I understand where you're at with that. And I think that's fine, distinguishing the two, because people got to know that you know who you are, because when you know who you are, it's so much, you're not going to become something else. Or you're not swayed from the left or to the right when you meet other great personalities that hit the room.
It took me a while to get this, and I think that's part of it, is because I was very much what is it called? When you don't believe you belong. I forgot the term.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome. I had that for a long time. I suffered from imposter syndrome. So now when I looked at myself like, dog, why are you feeling like this? And part of it is because of the culture where you got to feel like, you got to play a little lower. So it's like, no. So I don't walk in the room like, I made a movie, right? Like, nah, I don't do that. But if I'm talking, I'm going to speak highly of myself because I deserve it.
And I know what I've been through.
Yeah, like, you don't know my story.
Right.
I'm the author of this book that I'm living. And it's not done yet.
Yeah.
I have lived.
Yeah.
I have overcome some stuff. And to be in these positions, man, shout out to the man up top, because I wasn't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I didn't forecast a future being in 25, in my 30s.
Yeah.
I didn't think about smelling 40. Like,
and you know what's crazy about that? Because you're right. That holds true for me too. And God has been one of the, standing staples in my life. Because I had no father. I didn't know who my father was. You know what I'm saying? And, I knew him, but, he drugs, alcoholism, all that. And that was scattered throughout my family. So it was him. But, he is like the one that can say, humble yourself and come to me. Yes. Because I'm going to tell you, if I didn't do it his way, it wouldn't have gotten done. And his way had the depression in there, had me crying all over the place, had all of the mess. If I was going to do it my way, I wouldn't have shed a tear. I would have had Superman on my cape. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I would have been out in front doing all of the things I felt like I should have been doing or how I felt like it should have looked. But I'm going to tell you, man, when I went his route, that was one of the things I had to kind of accept, like, because the beating, not the depression, I wouldn't call that a beat down. It felt like one though, because when you're humbling yourself, man, or just to be in the circumstance, because you have to first accept where you are before you can get up out of there. You know what I mean? And just humbling myself to actually accept where I was. Because I knew, like, this is a lie. I'm not supposed to be here. I know this ain't my ending destination. You know what I'm saying? I just know it. I can feel it. It's in my bones. I don't know what it is, but there's something in me that says this is a lie. You know what I'm saying? But it was one of those things where you like, but it's true for now. And accepting it so that I could move through it without looking at myself in a certain way or judging myself. That was big for me. Stop judging yourself for things you didn't do to you, right? It's not your fault that things happen to you. It is your responsibility to heal, but what you're dealing with is you didn't do this to you, and understanding it to the point where you can work with it to get out of it is so important, because I'm gonna tell you, so many people have a hard time facing it, and they react when they should be responding.
Yep.
And then when you react out of that pain and you end up doing something, you end up trying to get the money for you were supposed to get the money, or you end up robbing somebody, or you end up hitting the block, or you end up trying to do some kind of scam, right? Those are all reactions to your circumstances, not necessarily responses. But you have to say to yourself, yo, I'm not right. This is not right about how I'm thinking about it, or about how I'm going about it, or about how, because my anger, I had to humble myself on my anger, man. You know what I mean? And I had such a quick switch.
Yeah, man.
Such a fast switch. And I felt like it was how I had to be, how the world had kind of made me to be.
How we were taught.
Yeah. And then humbling myself to know that that wasn't me, and acting with humility to become someone else. I love the journey that you just articulated out here. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring too, because it's one that I think most men have. Maybe not the same in terms of the tangible effects your journey has kind of produced, but just the emotional journey. I think most men are going to have to reevaluate. I think most men in their lives are going to lose it and have to get it back, right? You are going to lose your money. You're going to lose your sense of security. You're going to lose certain things in your life. But how do you respond to it, right? There's going to be a regaining effect. You will recover all effect, right? And how you go through that is going to matter. And you handling it, managing it right, is also going to be monumental to your success. But it'll play for you. You'll learn how it becomes exactly what you need, and it'll become your tool, and it'll become your filter through your understanding and what you speak about, how you talk, and all of your humility and all of your life will come out in the way you speak. Once you decide, all right, it's cool that I go through it. It's cool to be this way. It's cool to even feel it. It's cool to even go through it. It's cool to cry. It's all right to fucking cry. Excuse my language. Right? As much as it happened to me, I ain't gonna lie, I was sick at first. I was sick, bro. Like, what is going on here? But look, all right, I know that we could probably do this for hours on end, man. I did want people to learn the journey. I wanted people to understand that even in entertainment, life happens to us all, man. It's not anything that anyone escapes from. Everyone has a story, everyone has a journey, and the journey always is for you. How you perceive it helps you hold it. And it seems like you've done all of that, man, to the point where you've been able to kind of evolve and morph into a becoming, and you're still exploring those versions of yourself. And I think that's admirable. And now you've taken on some different expressions as you've allowed some things to happen in your life for you. And you're kind of exploring those avenues. And I want to kind of, give you an opportunity to talk to all of those routes of expression, whatever you got coming up, right? Acts, movies, TV shows, recordings, podcasts, whatever. I want you to let the people know how to tap in with everything that you got going on.
Oh, no, appreciate it. First, y'all can follow me on IG at That Boy Tone CEO. That spelled the ghetto way, DAT. Boy spelled the regular way, BOY. Tone, because that's what I said. And CEO, because I'm a boss. So if you follow me there, you'll see a lot of things I have from my upcoming movie that I wrote and directed, which is a romance-based drama. So it's not a comedy. Second Chance, it does have comedy elements to it, but it's a romance-based drama. Second Chance, the premiere is November 9th at Guilford Brewery before we release it on streaming at the top of next year.
I got to get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a ticket for you, man. I will be in Detroit. What is that? Friday. No, what is that? October 11th. Doing a live taping, comedy, improv up there. I'll be back in Baltimore November 1st at words, wings, and wine. Doing some comedy. I might actually do some spoken word that day. I got a new piece called The 50. So you actually might want to come out there. I'm gonna have that fine tuning ready on November 1st. We have a podcast that we'll be releasing soon. We just filmed 2 episodes on Saturday and Sunday, so we're working on that. What else I got? I mean, I have a lot. So if you follow the page, you'll see a lot there. And YouTube, On Crown Productions at YouTube.
Hey man, listen, tap in. And we only sat here for about maybe 2 hours. And I think I've laughed the most I've laughed all week. And he wasn't even trying. So tap in with him. He's definitely talented. And I think his life and his experiences made the funny. He ain't working hard to be funny. He just is himself. And I think that's the dopest thing about you, man. I appreciate you hopping on with me.
Thank you.
This is the Ryan Dunston Podcast, and these are words from Humble Kings. Please tap in. Peace.